Hello and welcome. This is Sara Esther Crispe, and I am so excited to be part of the Light of Infinite Festival. So thank you for joining me. I am speaking to you from Danby, Vermont. If you've been watching the news, we are fairly underwater, unfortunately. Lots of flooding, especially yesterday, state of emergency. So very much hoping not to lose reception here. Fortunately, where we are, we're at the top of the mountain. So we are okay, thank God. But all the roads leading up were washed out, and it's been an interesting few days. So my topic is actually quite appropriate for that because we are going to be speaking about stress relief, something that we can all relate to, I'm sure, in different ways and for different reasons. And it's a topic I really enjoy speaking about because it's something that always is relevant, and that having this kind of shift of mindset and how we approach the stress that inevitably we're going to be dealing with has a huge impact on our quality of life and our overall health. So to begin with, I want to read to you a short little poem that perfectly encapsulates this concept of stress. So here we go. I don't know the author's name. It has been attributed to a few different people. So as of now, anonymous, but it reads as follows. If you can sit quietly after difficult news, if you can remain calm during financial downturns, if you can watch others succeed without being jealous, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate, if you can fall asleep without a drink or a pill, if you can be content with who you are and where you are, then you are most likely a dog, right? So we all seem to struggle in one way or another with the various things just mentioned, and having that sense of calmness when it comes to the variety of things that life throws at us, some outside, external, societal, environmental, in this case, weather, some very much related to our interpersonal lives, our relationships, what's going on in our day-to-day situations. And stress is something that Judaism addresses in a really beautiful way and is spoken about and alluded to in a variety of different sources, but we even see a hint right from the get-go when creation is described to us, and we have the idea Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Boker, Yom Echad. And it was evening, and it was day, and it was one day. One day. Part and parcel of every single day is that there is a period of that day that is dark and a period of that day that is light. No one escapes night. No one escapes the darkness. It is part of the definition and what constitutes an actual day. So if the darkness is going to be a part of it, how are we going to address this? How are we going to view it, right? And dark does not necessarily mean negative or bad, but it does allude to hidden, right? You can walk into your room, exact same furniture, exact same placement, and when the lights are off, when it's pitch black in there, you are that much more likely to go running into the corner of the bed or step on Legos your kids might have left on the floor. Things that didn't just magically appear when nighttime came, but you couldn't see them, right? So if the lights were on, you wouldn't have done that. You would have avoided that painful interaction with said bed corner or the excruciating response to stepping barefoot on Legos. But because it was dark and it was hidden, you didn't see it, which is why Erev is connected to the word erbuvia, which means like chaos and confusion, versus boker, morning, light, which is from bikoret, which is clarification. Things become clear when we can see, when the light is out. And yet, we have to utilize the night. We know that children grow the most in their sleep. If we utilize the darkness, if we rest, if we recover when it is night, we're going to be that much more productive, that much more healthy come the day, right? Which is why insomnia is something terrible to suffer from, and actually lack of sleep is a torture technique to keep people from sleeping, to not allow them to be healthy in the dark and to utilize what the dark is for. So when it comes then to this idea of stress, right? And it would seem even with the light and the dark and these two different states of being, that life would be so easy and so simple if everything was smooth, if everything was just nice and easy and no bumps in the road. And we all do reach a time in our lives where that is exactly what happens. But when our EKG shows that really straight, flat line, game over. That is the end of life. We want life with lots of up and downs because that is the definition of being alive. There are going to be the peaks, there are going to be the valleys, there are going to be all of these highs and these lows, but that is part and parcel of being alive, right? There is evening and there is day, and it is one day. So when it comes then to stress, it's something vital that we address because it is unfortunately considered the number one killer in society today. The number one thing that people are dying from are stress-related illnesses. If it is from heart attacks or other issues that arise and are basically blamed on stress. And the irony of that is that stress in and of itself is usually the outcome of something that is not life-threatening. What do I mean by that? That stress is an emotional reaction and response and result of the things in our life that we don't have enough time for, we don't have enough money for, we're not sure how we're going to handle, we might not have enough help in getting it done. But when you hear how others refer to stress and even how we speak about it ourselves, we are stressed about how we're going to pay our bills, or we are stressed about sometimes even beautiful, joyous occasions. Oh my gosh, the wedding is in a week. It is so stressful. I'm so stressed out. I don't know how I'm going to get everything done in time, right? Coming up with the seating planning is just so stressful. When people deal with really traumatic news and situations, stress is not the outcome. It's a byproduct. It is also stressful. But people don't use that expression. You don't hear somebody saying there was unfortunately a terrible diagnosis. It's really stressful. It's tragic. It's devastating. It is debilitating. It is overwhelming. It's a lot of things. Stress is not the primary thing that it is. I can tell you right now, with what's going on here in Vermont and seeing how people are responding and reacting, it's tragic. It is horrible that homes are being washed away and people are losing everything they have, and animals need places, but people are not responding that they're so stressed out. They are devastated. They are going through something very traumatic, but stress is what's going to come later on. That's with dealing with the practicalities, not the life and death things. And yet stress is the number one killer. So something is killing us. It is taking our lives that in and of itself it wouldn't. That if you played it out to the absolute worst aspect, right? So you can't get your bills paid on time, so you're at risk of losing your car, which would mean that it's going to get impounded, which would mean you're not going to be able to get to work and maybe you would lose your job. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Not great, not easy, not simple, very overwhelming, but not deadly. And yet the response to stress is something that can kill a person. So we have to really fix this. And there is a Stanford lecturer who is a psychologist. Her name is Kelly McGonigal. And she has a book titled The Upside of Stress: Why Stress is Good for You and How to Get Good at It. And she has a TED video, which is a nice short summary, which I believe is titled How to Make Stress Your Friend. And this went viral and caught a lot of people's attention because what her studies and her research have shown is that how we view stress is going to impact how it impacts us. That stress is not in and of itself unhealthy, toxic, negative, deadly, but how we view it is going to affect how it affects us. And she did a study. It was a study from the University of Wisconsin, and they researched 50,000 American adults for 8 years. And they found that the subjects that had a lot of stress had a 45% increase in premature death. But there's a caveat. If and only if they found stress negative. If they didn't consider stress a bad thing, on the contrary, if they thought about stress as a good thing, not only didn't they have a shorter lifespan, but they were equal with those who did not consider their lives stressful, because it was divided by those who felt that their life was very stressful and those who did not feel they had a lot of stress in their lives, and then based on how they viewed stress. And when we trust ourselves and we trust our bodies and we trust our responses and we value that and we give, belief to the fact that our body loves us and is trying to help us, then a stress reaction or stress signaling in our body should be viewed as something positive, that it's there to help us, that it's there to give us increased oxygen and blood flowing through our body so that we have the energy and the impulse to do what needs to get done, right? So I heard a group of Olympians, and they had just won. It was a group of divers. They just won the gold. And it was a fascinating response, an immediate reaction to the interviewer, who, of course, jumps in with one of these, fairly ridiculous questions, but is asking them how they feel and then follows up with, "You must have been so nervous." And without skipping a beat, they respond with, "We were so excited." And that, my friends, is why they won the gold, right? What's the difference between feeling excited and feeling nervous? Physiologically, they're pretty similar, right? My hands are sweating. My stomach is all nervous butterflies in my stomach. I'm breathing quickly. I'm antsy. But am I pumped up? Am I just so excited for this opportunity? And I'm going to use all that energy to get out there and do my best? Or am I a nervous wreck? Am I absolutely terrified? What if I fail? What if I fall apart? What if I lose? What if I embarrass myself? What if I humiliate my team? One is going to stop us, and the other one is going to propel us forward. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to always win the gold, but we are going with the most positive energy and mindset possible. And that is why we even see, for example, people who physically stress themselves out in order to perform better, right? So right before the Super Bowl, you've got all the guys in the locker room. They're not meditating, right? They've got a lot of pressure on them, a lot of stress, right? That is a very stressful game. They better perform. So much is riding on it. Everybody's watching, all the fans and all the investors, and there is a lot. They're not back there meditating. They're not going, calm down, breathe. They are pumping themselves up. Right? They're ooh, or whatever. I don't know what guys do in the locker room, but they are getting pumped up so that when like they are released, they are going to fly forward with as much stress and energy as possible to go out there and do their best. So all of that is a preface. Where is our key source in the Torah for what stress is and how we should view it? And we have in Proverbs a great statement that is Da'aga b'lev ish yashchena u'davar tov yisamchena. This is Proverbs Mishlei 12:25. And it says that stress, or sometimes da'aga is translated as worry or stress in the heart of a person will cause dejection or sadness, but a good word will turn it into joy. Now, that sounds great, but if you are completely stressed out and you say to somebody, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, and they go, it's going to be okay, right? Like, you're not ready. You can't hear that. That's not comforting. That's not calming. So the Talmud recognizes this. And that's why, and there is a discussion between, in Yoma 75a, between this debate between Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Ami. And they discuss 3 different stages of self-reflection that we need to go through in order to be ready for that statement to make sense, where we are then prepared to hear that good word, where we can accept it and where it's going to sit. But before we get to their 3 approaches, just a few other really important things to pay attention to. First of all, it's da'aga b'lev ish, in the heart of a person. Notice it's not b'moach, it's not in the mind of a person. It's not intellectual. It is emotional. It is an emotional response. How I feel. How I feel can easily contradict what I might think or what others would think or what is factual, right? Our feelings can often be very responsible for misconstruing and shifting those facts, right? So, and our feelings when they're guiding us can completely and totally overwhelm us. So first of all, it's teaching us that stress is emotional. It's in our heart, right? So we're likewise going to need to shift our heart and our mind, how we're feeling and how we're thinking, in order to view stress differently. Da'aga, the very first word, which is the word for stress or worry, is also a fascinating word because that word contains 4 out of the 5 first letters in the Hebrew alphabet. There is an aleph, there is a gimel, there is a dalid, and there is a hey. That is how da'aga is spelled, right? Dalid, aleph, gimel, hey. It's missing a very important and crucial letter that once we insert that letter, it's no longer da'aga. And that's the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet, the beit. If we put in the beit, we don't have da'aga anymore. And what is beit? So numerically, it is equivalent to 2, which is our reminder that we were not created to get through life alone. We need help. We need others. We need support. It is not weak to reach out to someone else. It is human. It's how we were created. It is why we were created. It's not just human, it is holy. We need others, and others need to be needed. So very often we think we're doing a favor. We think that by taking on all the work, all the stress, doing it ourselves, not bothering other people, not reaching out, not asking, that we're being kind. But we're actually robbing others of the ability to help us. to do that kindness, to be there for us, to support us. And you know what? The people in our lives who love us want to be there for us. They want to be available. They want to be able to help. So we can only provide that opportunity when we reach out and when we let them know, hey, I am totally overwhelmed. I am totally stressed out. So we'll talk about that a little more in a bit. But so it's numerically equivalent to 2. And every word in Hebrew, or more specifically, every letter in Hebrew, is a word, and it has a numerical equivalent. It also has its pictorial form, which we're not going to get into right now. But so the word that the letter Beit stands for is bayit, which is a home, which is feeling at home within ourselves, creating that space within us for others to feel at home, and feeling at home with and within others. So when we feel supported, when we feel calm, that we're at home, that we can kick off our shoes, that we can be ourselves, when others feel at home coming to us and supporting us and helping us, and we feel at home going and asking for that help and support, that takes away the da'aga. That also takes away that stress. It removes it completely. So when the bait is inserted and we're not alone and we have support and we feel at home, and bait is also for bitachon, which is a sense of security, feeling safe. When all those conditions are met, those are already the antidote to feeling stressed out. So we have these key ideas within what da'aga is and how to combat it before we even get to these 3 stages. And likewise, that it is an emotional response and not an intellectual response. We also see beautifully enough that our Torah begins with the letter bait, and not just any bait, but a big bait, right? Every Hebrew letter appears twice in the Torah, once in a small version and once in a large version. And however, other many times it appears in its regular state. But each have a meaning and a lesson, what we are minimizing and what we are making that much bigger. And so when it comes then to the bait, to needing others, and to the sense of creating a home and feeling at home, that's the big bait. That is the first letter that begins the Torah, which is our reminder that that is the essence and the foundation of creation. And resilience is what we're able to build through that support. Now, there is a devastating statistic, which we are taught from the former general surgeon, Vivek Murthy. And he said that loneliness, which is one of the biggest crises today, feeling alone, right? We're so socially connected. We have all of our thousands of Facebook friends and our TikTok followers and all those on Snapchat and all the other ways we're connecting with all these people. And yet loneliness is at an all-time high, where we might have 5,000 friends on Facebook, not a single friend we feel ready or able to call when we're in need. So we have this dichotomy and this very unhealthy balance. And what he explains is that feeling lonely is as dangerous and unhealthy to the body as smoking 13, hold on, it might be 15, I can't see with my glasses, 15 cigarettes a day, right? That just from feeling isolated, feeling alone, which also COVID, obviously, and everybody kind of in isolation at different points and in different ways did not help this situation. That feeling alone and not feeling you have somebody to reach out to is physically, not just emotionally and not just psychologically and spiritually, but physically as dangerous to the body as 15 cigarettes a day. One of the most beautiful things, I've been watching this and trying to post some of the things that I'm seeing, one of the most beautiful things that you see very often when tragedy strikes, when there is crisis, are those who offer support and help to complete strangers. I love Vermont, and Vermonters are the most beautiful people, in my opinion. And just being able to see, all these different posts. If you need a place to sleep, I can, fit 4 people and your pets. Somebody else offering, if your horses, are on low ground and need to be evacuated, truck is filled with diesel, I can hold 3 to 4, I can get them out, they can stay on my farm. I made hot soup. Who can I deliver it to? Somebody else, I'm, evacuating people from their homes. Give me a shout out. Let me know who needs. I mean, just endless offers of support and help. Now, none of those offers of support and help are going to replace the damage that was done in these homes. It's not going to give back furniture. It's not going to take care of all the expenses. It's not going to replace photographs that were lost. I mean, the damage is very real, very significant, very devastating, very costly. Yet, feeling supported in the immediate, right now, knowing you're not alone, knowing strangers care, knowing friends care, knowing people are going to have your back is going to be such an enormous difference in how people recover from this. Because our mental health and how we view our situations, not in the immediate, when the adrenaline's pumping and we're in an emergency state, but when things calm down, feeling supported makes all the difference. My daughter is a firefighter and an EMT, so obviously, very involved in different crises like this and others. And one of the things that they are taught is that the way a person is even supported immediately in an emergency, I'm here for you. I've got you. I'm not leaving your side. I'm holding your hand. I am here. Knowing they're not alone in those first few moments physically helps them heal, because feeling supported takes away that, automatic fear and even stress within the body that can happen. So this is huge. Once again, that bait is huge. So now when it comes then to the Talmud's approach for how we're supposed to understand the statement, when there is stress and worry in the heart of a person, a good word will turn it into joy, which already, by the way, implies that there is another person, because somebody else is giving that good word, although we also can and should be giving it to ourselves, because our self-talk is vitally important. That we have, again, this debate between Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi in Yoma 75a, and here is the way the Talmud explains this. And it is stated as a question, Da'aga b'lev ish, when there is stress in the heart of a person. So the first response is yashchena, which is what we just described as dejection or sadness, right? That when there is this stress in the heart of the person will cause dejection or sadness. So now there's another interpretation that's given for that word, and that is yashchena, which means to suppress it. Cut it down to size. Put it into perspective. All right, one of the best things we can do when we are feeling completely and totally overwhelmed is to look at the bigger picture, to look at those around us and what's going on. Right? If I went through, a few moments today being stressed out, something wasn't working how I wanted it to, and I almost made the comment like, oh, I can't believe I'm dealing with this today, when I realized sitting in my house without flooding in my basement, because I am fortunate enough to live on the top of the mountain and not the bottom of the mountain where things are washed out. Wow, bigger perspective, cut it down to size, not so stressful, not so overwhelming, right? So that reminder, if you're not dealing with something life and death, if you're not dealing with a tragedy, put it into perspective, right? There is a great little story of this father who has his son home for winter break. The kid is away at college. He came home over break. Now that summer will make it summer break. And at one point he walks by his room and he notices that his room is completely neat and clean, which is already a little disconcerting. Very curious. And then he sees that there is a letter on the bed and it says, Dad. Now he's a little more concerned. He goes over, opens this letter, and it says, Dear Dad, I figured it might be easier to explain things in a letter than speaking to you directly. I hope that's okay. But I've decided that, college is really not for me. I'm not happy. I'm not enjoying it. I really just want to experience life and travel the world and take in all these opportunities to meet different peoples and cultures. And so I sold the car you gave me for graduation. I emptied my trust fund. I gave it all away. I don't care about money. I don't care about things like that. That's just not my values. I have fallen in love. Mazel tov, you're going to be a grandfather soon. And we're off to just, travel the world and see what's out there. Father's having some heart palpitations at this point. His kid has dropped out of college. He sold the car. He's emptied the trust fund. He's about to be a grandfather. Not exactly what he had in mind at this point for his kid, halfway through college. And he, at this point, notices there's a little arrow at the bottom of the paper, flips it over, and it says, Dad, none of the above is actually true. I am hanging out at Jacob's house, and my end of year grades are on your desk. Woo, right? Whole new story. If he had approached his father, if he had started with, look, I know you're paying a lot of money for my private university education here, but I was a little too busy having fun. And instead of studying, party hard, study hard, I did the party hard real well, not the study hard so well. And I didn't pass everything, got some really bad grades, and I'm on, academic probation. His father would have flipped his lid. That would have, are you crazy? Do you know how much, hard work I had to put into this and how much savings and paying off loans for the next 30 years, on and on and on and on. But in perspective, cutting it down to size, you're still enrolled in college? Yes. You still have your car? Yes. You still have your trust fund? Yes. No baby on the way? No baby on the way. You're going back next semester? Yes. Work harder. Do better. Try more. All good. Right? So sometimes the cutting it down to size makes an enormous difference. And we are, look, as Jews, it's in our DNA. We're kind of natural worriers, right? That's like part and parcel of who we are and how we're defined and all the jokes that are made about us, just like this one, actually. So there is this very cute joke of a Jew, a Frenchman, and a German who walk into a bar. So the German starts and he says, gosh, I am so unbelievably thirsty. I must have a beer. Frenchman follows and says, I am so unbelievably thirsty. I must have a glass of wine. Jew follows. I am so unbelievably thirsty. I must have diabetes. Right? So we're quick to kind of find sometimes worst case scenario and make that the focus. So that's the first way of explaining it. Suppress it, cut it down to size. What's the second? So we have, again, the question to Agabalevish when there's this stress in the heart of a person, yas chena, separate from it. Temporarily ignore it, right? So this means that when everything is overwhelming us, it's like, and we're kind of in that freeze state of stress where we can't do, because stress paralyzes, right? So we're so stressed out that we do absolutely nothing, right? Because we're sitting there stewing in our stress and worrying so much about things that we usually can't do anything about anyway, right? There's, you wouldn't worry so much about what everyone thinks if you realized how rarely they do, right? Or thinks about you. So often we're so caught up that all of this is going on and what people are thinking and what they're saying and what they're going to say. Nobody's paying attention to us anyway. Everybody else is too busy stressing about their own things, worrying about their own things, and focusing on their own lives to pay attention to ours. But we can feel so caught up in it that we don't move forward, that we don't actually do what needs to be done. So this idea here is that we shouldn't believe everything we think, or in this case, everything we feel. Separate from it a little bit so that we can let some facts come in. This also helps with number one about this idea of cutting it down to size, that when we are away from our situation, it helps us put into perspective everything else. A great way of doing this is, instead of thinking about ourselves, think about someone else, right? Go and volunteer in the children's ward of a hospital for an hour. Go and do some visits. I assure you, I guarantee you that you are going to immediately come back to your situation and think and feel differently about it, right? Go to IKEA. Buy just about anything and make it. You're either going to focus on those directions and stop thinking about your stress, or, you're at risk of losing a digit there. So there are times we need to just separate. It's like when the computer freezes, the Control-Alt-Delete, or sometimes it's a hard shutdown so that when I open it back up, I don't even remember what froze anymore. I don't even remember what was going on. It all kind of worked itself out. And now I'm refreshed, and now I can look at this with a different perspective because I was so caught up in my stress that I wasn't able to function in a healthy way. And then our final one is da'aga b'lev ish, when there is this stress in the heart of a person. Yesichena, articulate it. Speak about it. Reach out to someone, right? We said at the beginning that when you ask for that help, you're putting the bait into the da'aga, which means the da'aga is going away. You're inserting the letter that changes the stress and that worry. You're reaching out to another. You're asking for help. You're asking for support, and you're giving them that gift, that opportunity to be there for you, to give back to you, to help you. Think about it. Wouldn't you want people reaching out to you if you were in a position to help? You had the time, you had the resources, you had the ability, whatever it might be, and to know that you could be so useful and you could be so helpful and you could make such a difference, and how terrible you would feel if you found out they didn't ask because they didn't want to bother you. You'd feel, but I wanted to. I had this. I had this to give. I had this to share. You took that opportunity away from me by not asking me, right? So by reaching out, we shift and we change everything. And we have no idea the impact when we reach out to somebody else that could make. That, hey, are you okay? Anything you need? It can be to the complete stranger. Sometimes just saying those kind words, acknowledging somebody, looking them in the eyes, letting them know that you notice them, that they exist. Right? The best compliments are the ones that come from the total and complete strangers who, as you're walking out the door at Walmart, says, "Ooh, I love your earrings." Or "That's a beautiful bag," or whatever it might be. "I notice you. You matter. You count. I'm seeing you. I'm taking the time to express that, to articulate it, to reach out." All the more so when it's like "Hey, are you okay? Can I help you? Is there anything you need?" I'm here. I'm here to support you. It's going to shift it all. It's going to change it all. It's going to put it in a whole new light. Right? And that is ultimately that reminder that what is going to not even fix stress, but allow us to utilize it as something healthy and beautiful, where others can come in and can be there for us and can take those very real things we're dealing with. The deadlines don't change when we reach out, right? And the bills don't get smaller, but having support and having help and having insight and having others who can guide us or give us, whatever kind of help that may be for our particular situation is going to ultimately, really change everything. And there's a incredibly powerful story that I'm hoping I have just enough time to share here, but that I actually heard from the guy himself. And his name is Kevin Hines. And he spoke at an event that I was at many, many, many years ago. Probably in 2000, going back 23 years. And this is the idea, by the way, that articulating something, speaking about it, daga, are the same letters as agada, which means to talk, right? That speech allows us to heal. Actually, another beautiful allusion to this is that the word for healing itself, refuah, are from the letters orpeh, the light of the mouth. That we heal when we speak, when we put it into words, when others can hear us, when we can then hear what they have to say, so that at this point, the good word can turn it into joy, right? Right back to our original statement that when there is stress in the heart of a person, it will cause dejection or sadness, but a good word will turn it into joy when we're ready to hear it, when we can receive it, when we've done that work first. So back to Kevin Hines. He shared this remarkable story that and I will throw out a trigger warning because it is a difficult story to hear, but it does have a beautiful ending. And that is that he had reached a point where he was so depressed and so overwhelmed, so beyond stress, but in such a bad place that he had decided that his life was no longer worth living. However, he had made a promise to himself that if anyone along the way during his attempt to end his life interjected, spoke to him, acknowledged him, noticed him, he wouldn't do it. So he gets on a crowded bus, and this is in San Francisco. He is on his way to the Golden Gate Bridge, which is not a cry for help. This is a 245-foot bridge. And the bus is packed, but it's the end of a long day of work, and people are on their phones, and they're reading the paper, and they're doing their thing, and nobody's really paying attention. No one speaks to him. He's the last guy off the bus, hoping the bus driver might say something. Bus driver is like doing his paperwork for the day, doesn't really pay any attention, is just waiting for him to get off the bus. Walks along the bridge. A couple even stops just to see if they can take their picture, but if he'll take their picture, but no acknowledgement, no speaking to him really. And he decides that's a sign. That's it. He scales the bridge and he jumps. And again, 245 feet. And he says that the moment his feet left the whole way down, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Unfortunately, this is a very common spot for suicides. So they have recovery that they're not really called rescue because they're essentially doing recovery, that watch, that have cameras, that when a person enters the water, they come out. And he hits the water, and miraculously, he's alive. All the bones in his body, for the most part, have shattered just from the sheer impact, but he is alive. Rescue, this time comes. They're not recovery. And they say to him, I have no idea why you jumped, but there is a very good reason why you obviously need to be alive. And they ask him if he has any idea how he is even supporting his head above water with all these broken bones. And they say the minute you hit the water, a group of sea lions came and they have been swimming underneath you and holding your head above water this entire time. Your life has some very serious purpose to it. And Kevin Hines has spent the last number of decades speaking out about the importance of mental health, speaking out about the importance of speaking out, of not having shame, of asking for help, of reaching out, of accepting that help, and changing absolutely everything through articulating. So I just want to end with a bumper sticker I saw that I think does a beautiful job of explaining this idea, because ultimately, no matter how alone we may feel, we are never alone. It says, Ki yashev b'choshech Hashem orli. When I am sitting in darkness, God is my light. Even if I'm feeling alone and I don't have friends, I don't have people to turn to, I have my ultimate friend, my ultimate father, my ultimate supporter. And so I am ultimately never alone. And so this bumper sticker read, don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big your God is. We are not alone. That bait is there. We need to feel at home within ourselves. We need to recognize that we have a home with our ultimate parents supporting us, and that ultimately the stress that we feel should motivate us, should be transformed from darkness to light, from seemingly negative to something so positive and helpful. And through it, we should truly utilize everything we have to help ourselves, to grow, to help others, to connect, and to ultimately be a support for everyone around us. So thank you very, very much for joining, and I hope you enjoyed the talk. I do have a handout for it, so through the Light of Infinite Festival page, you should be able to reach out to me, and I can get it to you that way if you are so interested. Thank you very much.